So what do you get when you take a mid-range guitar, slap all the best parts on it money can buy, and sell it for $100 less than the equivalent Fender? Well, let's find out. Yes, so this is a Yamaha Pacifica. Maybe not the first brand a person would search up when they're looking for a mid-range guitar, but at $650 and a long list of very high-end parts, this could be a great mid-range contender. Now, I've owned an entry-level Pacifica for many years, and just a couple months ago we did a huge Yamaha build where we put a bunch of high-end parts on that guitar and gave it away to a subscriber, which was a ton of fun. Now, after that, the guys from Yamaha contacted me and said, "Darrell, would you like to try a higher-end Pacifica?" So this guitar was sent into the channel by Yamaha, so huge thanks to those guys. Let's jump in and check it out. All right, let's highlight some specs before we plug it in and listen to some tones. As usual, link to the guitar and full specs down in the video description below, but let's hit up some highlights. Number one, matching flame maple headstock. Only found usually on guitars in higher price range. It looks fantastic, and as I mentioned, this is $650. $100 cheaper than the equivalent Fender Player Series. So that's a pretty high-end spec. We've also got Grover locking tuners. Now, these are not some sort of like, knockoff lockers or something like that. These are actual Grovers, and they're the style without the thumb wheel on the back. They have the internal cam. I've used them before and they lock up just as good as any other, and of course they're Grovers, so they're gonna last. So that's fantastic. We've also got a Graphtec tusk nut and string trees. Again, nice high-end nut and string trees, something you won't find on that Player Series. So lots of high-end specs on the headstock. As for the neck, we've got the classic Yamaha C-shape. This one has a gloss neck, again, associated kind of with higher-end guitars, especially if you're in the Fender world. I personally prefer a satin neck, but the gloss is nice and it's well done. Now, moving on to the body, we've got an alder body with, of course, that flame maple veneer. The 612, the Pacifica 612 also comes with like solid and kind of metallic colors, but the flame maple is super nice, so I like this one. Moving on to some more high-end specs, we've got Seymour Duncan pickups, SSL1 in the neck and bridge, classic pickups, and a custom 5 in the bridge, and it's a humbucker, and guess what? We can also split it with the tone knob. So, I mean, talk about a bevy of high-end features. There we go, 5-way switch and a Wilkinson trem with a pop-in bar. So you don't see that again on the Player Series. I think it's still got like the screw-in bar, the old school. You can never quite get it tighter the way you want it. I mean, they're great guitars, but this Wilkinson trem, you can float it, you can deck it, and it's got a little set screw so you can set the tension if you want the bar to stay where you put it, which is what I like. So if I put it like that, it'll stay here, and you can pop it in and out. So great high-end features on this guitar. Now that we've heard some individual tones, I'm going to jam over a backing track. Link to the track, as always, is in the video description below. It's time for the 1 minute solo. So now let's move on to the overall construction, starting with the nut and the fretwork. Now, as I mentioned, the nut is a Graphtec and it looks fantastic. It matches up on the shoulders of the neck really well. Slots are clean, no adhesive anywhere, and the string can move freely as you use the bar or bend, vibrato, that kind of stuff. So that's all great. Now, as for the fretwork, well, I didn't really notice a difference between my 112J and this 612. To me, they feel pretty much identical. So it would have been nice to maybe get some higher end fretwork on this, but there's no dead spots, there's no buzzing, you know, everything is set up really nice and no like low frets, high frets, it all looks really good and feels good. But yeah, I didn't notice like a big night and day difference. And when we look close, you can see, you know, still some of that tooling marks that hasn't been buffed out, even up high. They look good, but not like blow you away. So serviceable frets for sure. Other than that, when we pop the back off the trem cavity, you can see that Wilkinson trem block, nice and thick. You like to see that, and there's still tons of, you know, play. You can take that bar all the way to the pickguard, even though that block is thick. Sometimes manufacturers will make the block thinner so that you can get a little bit more throw on the bar. But here, because of the cavity, because of the trim, you get that big sustained block while being able to, you know, do this, which is put the bar to the pickguards, which is awesome. So I love to see that. Yeah, and in the back control cavity, I would say this is maybe one area that I'd like to see this guitar upgraded. It does have a small alpha dime-sized pot. So, you know, I've seen that in other guitars kind of in this price range where you're like, man, this thing is specced out, like Grover lockers, flame maple top, Seymour Duncan pickups, Wilkinson trem, and small alpha pots. So, I mean, I've never, as I always mention, I've never had an alpha pot crap out on me ever in like 25 years, but you kind of just like to see maybe some higher end specs on that, given that the rest of the guitar is like incredible. So overall, this guitar is really well built. You can tell Yamaha's been up to this for decades, and it shows all the kinks have been worked out. And this is one of the few guitars where, you know, I just had to stretch the strings and it held tune. Most of the times when you get a new guitar, you kind of need to wear all the components together before it'll really, you know, hold tune. The nut, the tuners, the saddles, the trem posts, all that stuff that has movable parts just kind of has to get used and worn in before, you know, a guitar will really, really hold tune for you. But this one just seemed to work right away, which is great. So yeah, overall, really well built. Now, as for the ergonomics, the weight, the playability, well, as you can see, it balances really well. So no headstock dive there, even with the locking tuners, which is fantastic. We threw it up on the scale, came in at 7.7 pounds. So kind of right in that zone of what you'd expect for an S-style guitar. And yeah, as for like the comfort cuts and that kind of stuff, got a really nice forearm one right there. I'll try to catch it in the light. It's much sharper than what you would see on like a Strat style guitar. The horns are a little bit more pointed, but lots of easy access up to the 22 frets there. As I mentioned, I would love to see a contoured heel joint in the future. We'll see if that happens or not, but that would be fantastic. And other than that, yeah, just like, try to catch it in the light right there. Big belly cut, so very, very comfortable. So overall, really great. I think they could modernize, like this Pacifica shape has been out for a very long time. So I'd like to see some maybe some extra contours on the back if we could. That would be really, really cool. But overall, yeah, it's just a comfortable guitar that plays well, balances well, and is decently light. Well, here are my final thoughts on the Yamaha Pacifica 612. Well, at $650 with Grover locking tuners, Graph Tech accessories, Seymour Duncan pickups, HSS with splittable humbucker, Wilkinson trem with pop-in bar, there's not a lot to hate. That's a really good value, and it's built by Yamaha, so you know these guys have been building consistently good guitars for a long time. So if you're in the market for like an S-style guitar in this price range, this is definitely one to check out. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this demo. If you did, be sure to subscribe to the channel. You can check out the guitar, the gear I used, all my links in the video description below. Other than that, have yourself a great day.